Slow orchestral music fades in, steam hissing, wheels grinding against rails. A distant whistle cuts through the mist. Narrator, deep cinematic tone. In the late 1800s, America was moving. Steel tracks stitched the continent together like veins of ambition, carrying dreams, fortunes, and a new kind of luxury few had ever imagined. For many travelers, the train wasn't just transportation, it was an experience, a moving palace. And inside these rolling marvels, something extraordinary was happening. The railroad dining car had arrived, and with it, an age of elegance, taste, and unforgettable meals that turned simple journeys into grand adventures. Today, we'll travel back through time to discover 25 amazing meals served on American railroad dining cars in the 1800s. Dishes so refined, so ambitious, that even today they feel larger than life. Title card fades in with dramatic piano. 25 amazing meals served on American railroad dining cars in the 1800s. Scene shifts. Clinking silverware, white tablecloths, candlelight flickering as the train sways gently. Narrator, it's the 1870s. The golden spike has united the East and the West, and luxury rail companies like the Pullman Palace Car Company have transformed rough travel into pure sophistication. Passengers dress for dinner. Uniformed waiters glide between polished mahogany panels, and chefs, often European-trained, sometimes formerly of grand hotels, prepare meals worthy of the finest establishments in New York or Paris. Each dish tells a story, not just of taste but of ambition, geography, and identity. These meals weren't merely served, they were performed. Let's ease a step inside this world of rolling opulence and rediscover 25 unforgettable dishes that once defined America's rails. 1. Roast prairie chicken with wild currant sauce. Imagine a crisp white plate, heavy with silver trim. On it, golden brown prairie chicken, freshly hunted in the Midwest, rests beside a drizzle of ruby red currant sauce. This wasn't simple poultry. It was a statement that fine dining could travel across the frontier. The currant sauce, sweet yet tart, paired perfectly with the bird's earthy flavor, a culinary salute to the American wilderness. Passengers often whispered that no hotel on land could rival what the rails delivered through a window streaked with steam and sunset. 2. Lobster a la Newburgh. Now picture this, a dish so indulgent that even first-class passengers fell silent as it arrived. Chunks of tender lobster simmered in rich cream, butter, cognac, and egg yolk, finished with a whisper of cayenne. Lobster a la Newburgh was a taste of high society, an import from the eastern seaboard, proof that luxury followed you even when you were crossing the Great Plains. Served in heavy porcelain bowls, it glowed beneath the soft light of oil lamps as the train thundered through darkness. 3. Beef tenderloin with Madeira wine reduction. As the tracks curved into twilight, so too did the menu grow deeper, richer. One of the crown jewels of the dining car, beef tenderloin seared to perfection and glazed in a dark, glossy Madeira reduction. The smell alone, butter, herbs, and sweet fortified wine, drew even the most travel-worn passengers out of their compartments. Each bite melted on the tongue, echoing the rhythm of the rails beneath their feet. This was the frontier, but the taste? Pure civilization. 4. Oyster patties with cream sauce. Yes, oysters, hundreds of miles from the ocean. Packed in ice and shipped aboard express trains, these delicacies amazed inland travelers who'd never seen the sea. Chefs baked delicate puff pastry shells, filled them with stewed oysters, cream, and nutmeg, then topped them with a sprinkle of parsley and lemon zest. It was more than a meal. It was proof of progress. Proof that the railroad had conquered distance, delivering the Atlantic's bounty to the heart of America. Foo. Apple charlotte with brandy custard. As the train rolled through orchards and farmlands, dessert offered a poetic reminder of where it all began. The apple charlotte, layers of spiced apples and toasted bread baked until golden, came steaming to the table, served with warm brandy custard poured over the top. It was comforting yet sophisticated, a dessert that bridged humble roots and refined taste. For many travelers, it was the perfect finale to a journey that felt almost sacred, the meeting of motion, luxury, and flavor. Music swells, violins rising as the train speeds into a glowing sunset. Narrator. Each of these dishes represented something larger than appetite. They were symbols of an America that refused to settle, a country in motion, reinventing itself mile by mile. But this is just the beginning, because the deeper we ride, the more astonishing the flavors become. Train whistle echoes as the screen fades to black. Text fades in. Continue to Part 2. Meals that defined luxury on the rails. May 16. Chicken a la Maryland. Golden, crispy, and luxuriously Southern, chicken a la Maryland was one of the most iconic dishes ever served on American rails. Its aroma alone could draw a crowd. Fried in butter until perfectly crisp, then topped with a delicate white gravy and a sprinkle of paprika. Sometimes it was paired with sweet corn pudding or mashed potatoes and green peas, depending on the region the train passed through. The dish symbolized the meeting of comfort and elegance, home-cooked flavor dressed in fine presentation. For many travelers, especially those heading west for the first time, chicken a la Maryland tasted like the best of both worlds. Familiar yet refined, simple yet unforgettable. Guests would fall silent with the first bite, then sigh, as though the taste reminded them of home and hope in the same breath. 15. Canvasback duck with port wine reduction. Now picture this, a formal dinner setting. Velvet drapes pulled closed, oil lamps glowing softly, a white-jacketed waiter approaching with a plate of canvasback duck, a prized delicacy of the Eastern elite. Served with port wine reduction and wild rice, this dish was a favorite among industrial tycoons and visiting diplomats. It was said to have been served to President Grover Cleveland himself during a private rail journey through the Midwest. The duck was roasted over low heat, the sauce thick with port and butter, finished with a hint of cloves. Every bite was rich, a reminder that the rails weren't merely tracks of iron, but veins of luxury pulsing through America's wilderness. Passengers toasted with champagne as the landscape blurred past, toasting not just the meal but the marvel of modern travel itself. 14. Oyster stew with fresh cream. Few dishes brought such warmth to cold, restless nights aboard the rails. The moment a passenger ordered oyster stew, the car would fill with its unmistakable aroma, butter, cream, and the faint brine of the sea. Chefs ladled steaming bowls into porcelain dishes, topping each with cracked black pepper and a sprig of parsley. It was served alongside oyster crackers and a glass of sherry. The stew symbolized comfort amid movement, warmth against the vast frozen plains that the trains often crossed. And for passengers far from the coast, it carried the memory of the ocean, a delicate taste of home no matter how far inland they were. 13. Roast venison with cranberry relish. As trains reached into the northern forests, Wild game became a staple of dining car menus. Roast venison, in particular, was celebrated as a dish of the American wilderness, bold, hearty, and deeply flavorful. It was roasted slowly, brushed with herbs, and served with cranberry relish that cut through its richness. Passengers traveling through snowy landscapes described the experience like a dream, eating venison while watching herds of deer dart through the trees beyond the window. The boundaries between cuisine and nature blurred. For the first time in history, luxury travelers tasted the very land they were crossing, and to many that connection between the untamed and the refined was the essence of America's identity. 12. Boston baked beans with salt pork and brown bread. But not every passenger dined on duck and venison. For working-class travelers or those who preferred something humble, the Boston baked beans platter offered familiarity, a dish that felt honest, hearty, and distinctly American, cooked for hours until tender, sweetened with molasses and flavored with salt pork. It was a symbol of New England tradition that somehow found its way across the entire country. Served with a thick slice of homemade brown bread, it fed rail workers, families, and businessmen alike. Even in the most elegant cars, beans were a staple of the breakfast menu, a reminder that beneath the polish and crystal, the soul of America was still rooted in simplicity. Narrator, reflective tone. In these dining cars, aristocrats and dreamers alike sat beneath the same flickering gas lamps. The meals they shared, whether oysters or beans, weren't just about taste. They were about unity, about a nation learning to eat together, even as it learned to travel together. Sound of a train crossing a bridge, the echo of steel and water. Narrator continues. The railroad chefs were pioneers too, moving kitchens that spanned thousands of miles. They carried spices from the east, meats from the plains, wines from the coast. And from their ingenuity came dishes that would inspire generations of American dining. Because what began as necessity became artistry, and what started as travel became an experience. But the story isn't over yet. Next, we enter the golden core of the menu, the meals that defined the legend of luxury rails. From silver service breakfasts to desserts that dazzled the nation. Train whistle blows softly, fade to black. 21. Smoked buffalo tenderloin with juniper sauce. Few meats symbolize the American frontier like buffalo. Once hunted by indigenous tribes for survival, the bison became both a symbol of conquest and tragedy. But aboard the rails, it was transformed into haute cuisine. Chefs marinated buffalo tenderloin in red wine, smoked it over applewood, and served it with juniper berry sauce, a nod to the wild spirit of the plains. The flavor was deep, earthy, and distinctly American. Guests often compared it to fine European venison, but richer, stronger like the land it came from. For many travelers, it was their first encounter with the Wild West on a plate, and for the railroads, it was proof that even the wilderness could be served with silver cutlery and linen napkins. 20. Corn fritters with maple butter. Not every dish was about extravagance. Some were about comfort. Corn fritters, golden and crisp, became one of the most beloved breakfast items aboard the Burlington and Santa Fe lines. Made from sweet corn, flour, and eggs, fried to perfection, and drizzled with maple butter, they tasted like a piece of home. Imagine the aroma filling the dining car in the early morning light, coffee brewing, the conductor greeting passengers, the countryside awakening outside your window. It was simple, yes, but perfect. The kind of meal that reminded travelers that even amidst the grandeur, warmth could come from something humble. 19. Broiled trout with lemon cream sauce. As the rails stretched into the Rockies and the Pacific Northwest, fresh trout became a highlight of the westward journey. Caught from mountain streams, the fish were delivered directly to the rail stops, chilled with ice and served just hours later aboard the dining car. The chef would broil the trout over a small flame, drizzle it with a lemon cream sauce, and garnish it with fresh parsley and butter. Passengers often described it as tasting like the mountains themselves, delicate, fresh, and pure. To enjoy a trout dinner while watching the sun dip behind the Sierra Nevadas, that was the magic of rail dining, a collision of nature's beauty and man's craftsmanship. 18. Roast prime rib with Yorkshire pudding. Luxury had no limits aboard the Pullman Palace Cars. For dinner, guests might be treated to prime rib, roasted slowly until the meat was tender enough to cut with a silver fork. Alongside it came Yorkshire pudding, a nod to British tradition, crispy on the outside, soft within. The dining cars themselves were masterpieces, brass fixtures gleaming, crystal chandeliers swaying gently with each turn of the wheels. Fine china clinked softly as waiters, often trained in the great hotels of New York or Chicago, moved with practiced grace. This wasn't just food. It was America showing the world that it could match, even surpass, the old world in elegance. 17. Apple charlotte with vanilla cream. Every journey had to end with sweetness, and few desserts symbolized 19th century refinement like apple charlotte. Made from layers of buttered bread, baked apples, and cinnamon, served warm with vanilla cream poured tableside, it was the perfect close to an evening meal. In the flickering lamplight of the dining car, passengers would sip black coffee or port wine, watching the night countryside blur past their window. Soft music from a small gramophone played as the train rumbled on, a lullaby of steam and steel. And there, in that moment, between bites of apple charlotte and the rhythmic hum of the train, travelers felt something almost spiritual, that rare blend of comfort, beauty, and motion. Narrator, gentle, reflective tone. Railroad dining in the 1800s was more than an indulgence. It was a declaration that civilization could ride alongside progress, that no matter how far into the wilderness the tracks stretched, refinement would follow. From wild buffalo to delicate desserts, these meals defined an era. But the menu was far from finished, because next, the golden heart of the railroad table, the dishes that united East and West, luxury and frontier. Meals so iconic that even presidents and tycoons demanded them on board. Train whistle fades, transition music swells. Coming up next, the culinary masterpieces that crowned America's Iron Empire. Meal number 1, prime rib with horseradish cream. Served fresh from the onboard oven, carved tableside by a white-gloved attendant. Accompanied by buttered asparagus and baked potatoes, it was a favorite on the Pennsylvania Railroad's Broadway Limited. Meal number 2, broiled lobster tails with drawn butter. Yes, even in the 1800s, luxury trains offered seafood. Packed in ice from the East Coast, lobsters were served with warm rolls and seasonal vegetables, a showstopper on the New York Central line. Meal number 3, roast quail on toast. A symbol of sophistication, this delicacy was marinated in wine and herbs, then roasted until golden, served atop a thick slice of pan-fried bread, a Western railway classic. Meal number 4, chicken a la century, the signature dish of the New York Central's 20th Century Limited. Poached chicken breasts, coated in a velvety cream sauce with mushrooms and fine herbs, served with wild rice. Meal number 5, shoe fly pie, a sticky sweet molasses pie from Pennsylvania Dutch country. Often served warm with whipped cream, it was a nostalgic dessert on many East Coast routes. Meal number 6, braised beef tongue with Madeira sauce. Unusual by today's standards, but a delicacy of its time. Tender beef tongue slow-cooked in red wine and served with a rich reduction. Popular on the Union Pacific. Meal number 7, creamed oysters on toast. A savory breakfast dish served to first-class passengers on the Southern Railway. Plump oysters stewed in cream and butter, spooned over toasted brioche. Cut to black and white photos of real menu cards, station chefs preparing food. These weren't just meals. They were statements of elegance, pride, and status. You weren't just paying for transportation, you were buying an experience where every plate was plated like fine art. Meal number 8, applewood smoked ham with red-eye gravy. A Southern staple reinvented for the rails. Cured ham slices, slow-smoked and served with black coffee gravy, paired with sweet corn pudding and buttered greens. Meal number 9, poached trout with lemon dill butter. Caught fresh from the streams of Colorado and Montana, trout became a sought-after delicacy aboard trains traveling west. Served with baby carrots and fingerling potatoes. Meal number 10, wild game stew. A rustic, frontier-inspired dish. Slow-cooked venison, rabbit, and duck in a thick brown sauce. Often featured on Great Northern Railway routes through the Rockies. Cut to, music swells, fade into steam engine moving through mountains. Narrator, voice softens. Can you imagine it? The rhythmic clatter of the tracks, the scent of roasted meats, the hush of velvet curtains swaying with each bend, and on your plate, a meal fit for royalty. This was the railroad dining car, where the heart of America was served, one course at a time. Fade out.